Ecologists tell us that a young tree grows better when it's planted in an area with mature trees. The reason, it seems, is that the roots of the young trees are able to follow the paths created by the former trees and implant themselves more deeply. Over time, the roots of many trees may actually graft themselves to one another, creating an intricate, interdependent foundation hidden under the ground. In this way, stronger trees share resources with younger ones, so that the whole forest becomes healthier. That's legacy.
I think by the time I was in the middle to the upper grades, I had kind of an inner sense that I would like to be a sister. The Cincinnati Dominicans, of course, were models. They were smart, they were kind, they were joyful.
Well, I went to a grade school that had two very nice Dominican sisters. There were other Dominican sisters there who I guess were nice too, but I didn't have them as teachers. I was impressed with their own devotion to study, their own devotion to the students. They cared about each one, and they tried to help those who weren't quite so bright, to come up higher. And those of us who were, at least thought we were kind of bright, were properly tamed down and shown that we had some advantages maybe, but other people had other ones, and to get a bigger picture than just how smart you could be in class.
They had a level of excellence in who they were and who they expected us to be. But most of all, they were women who, it was really evident they had integrated their faith and their lives and their learning and their relationships.
And those just seem to be very good human values. As I look back on it, and I thought, that's a set of people that I think are doing a lot of good and will do a lot of good, and I think I'd like to be part of that.
I thought, well, maybe the way they live has something to do with the way they think. So I gave it a try.
But I would say it was both external and internal. It was a sense that this was a personal call within me from God, and at the same time I saw before me models of a life that was very attractive.
I was so influenced in Washington, D.C., where I attended a Dominican academy, and then was going to Trinity College, which is a college in Washington, D.C. But I decided, well, I was a Trinity College student, but I decided before I finished to enter the Dominicans of Cincinnati. And my family, of course, said, "Where is that?" And one of my boyfriends said, "And if you ever change your mind, be sure to get in touch."
As far as this place goes, I went on to high school and had Cincinnati Dominican sisters, and I learned so much about language and literature from Sister Melissa. And then I went to college, where our sisters have Edgewood College in Madison, and my advisor is Sister Clemente. So this place is in my blood. It's in my bones. And now these women are my sisters and my friends. Sister Melissa and Sister Clemente, whom you know, are my friends and sisters forever.
Samuel said something astounding to me. You read other rules of other orders, and very often they're, very strict and formal. And he said everything in a religious community should be done through affection. And it's very important to me.
You would be delighted just to see us when we see one another or get together, because it's just as if we are indeed one family with one goal. And what's the saying? See how they love one another. And we do.
The ability to be with one another, regardless of age, regardless of position in ministry, and to know that we are sisters. That There's never a sense of a hierarchy, and a respect for each other, and a real joy in being sisters to one another. It's always fun when we gather, because the laughter and the smiles just kind of overwhelm the whole place, you know. And that has always been.
Well, you know, nobody ever told us to smile and be friendly. I mean, it was kind of taken for granted. But very often, part of it, I suppose, was the insistence of our early sisters to, now I don't mean to be exclusive, but to be American, which was democratic and inclusive. So people say, our students say, oh, you know, you're friendly, you are progressive. Well, that's nice. As I say, we didn't ever make it in an intentional aspect, but it seems to be the way we've developed.
Relationships, I think, is what makes this place my home. I mean, and I think that's a focus of our congregation. At the heart of ministry is relationship. That's everybody in the congregation sort of knows that line. If they don't know any other line from the Constitution, they know that one.
Well, God, by His gift, makes Dominican my home, and in a special way, because I'm a Dominican sister of Cincinnati who sponsors the university. You know, so I'm rooted here, but not rooted here that I can't be anyplace else.
We were being accredited. You know, every 10 years the college has to be accredited, reaccredited. And I met one of the scrutineers, one of the investigators when they were here several years ago when I was dean. And I went up and I introduced myself to him. And at that time, no, I wasn't dean. I was then promoter of mission. That was my job. What Sister Diane and Marianne Minninghoff, what they do now. And so I went up and I introduced him to him, myself, and I said, you know, I was the promoter of mission. And he looked at me and he said, yes, mission, he said. I hear it all the time, he said. You're very overt about your mission. And I said to him, well, we don't want it to be a secret.
As I learned more about the early sisters and Father Sam, that idea of being people for others seemed to have been carried forth so well.
So I think that I don't know if it's unique, but I think we've been very good in the last, I don't know how many years, in articulating who we are as Dominicans, and articulating it so publicly that other people begin to know what our charism is, what our gift is, what we offer to the world, our pursuit of truth, particularly our pursuit of truth, but also giving service.
I expect Caritas and Veritas really to be the goal, or the mindset, if you will, of every student here. It's drummed into them the day they get here. And you are here for truth, and you are here for love. And when I look around and see groups of students, multitudes of students, all different backgrounds, getting along fine, that's the Caritas. Getting along, loving one another, and loving this place. I think this place emanates love, and that is what it's about. But our high standards in the Veritas keep us all legitimate in that.
You know, this pursuit of truth is a never-ending search, and the object of that is beyond the ability of any individual mind to comprehend it. God is incomprehensible. But each person, and even beyond either people, facets of creation have the potential, it can show that a piece of truth. And so we always need to be, we should never think that we've got it all. You can be sure that you've got some, but you need always to be open to hearing or seeing the piece that you haven't yet seen.
It's all about relationships. It's all about valuing whoever's in front of you.
The most challenging thing, I believe, in my lifetime has been the adjustment from pre-Vatican II days, 50 years ago, the updating when we were requested to go back to the mind of our founders, which in our case, of course, is St. Dominic, not just Father Sam, but way back into the 1200s. What was Dominic's idea? What were we? How could we revive that spirit now in the 20th and 21st centuries? And we're still working on that. That has been a big thing.
Well, I think Vatican II put many of us into a position where we wished reform very, very much. And I think one of the funniest things, 1968, we sent the students home at Christmas, and when they came back, we were all in secular clothes and had changed our names. And that was a rather, I think it was harder on the students than it was on us, but that was a very kind of chaotic time, you know. But a very rewarding time, I think.
The theologians, some of whom had been silenced by less visionary popes for 40 years, were suddenly invited to come to the council and to say what they'd been saying about open up the windows, let the fresh air in.
After Vatican II, from 67 to 75, when we were implementing the changes required by Vatican II, and I did that for 8 years because our congregation said the renewal of religious life has to begin with formation. And so we were kind of given a blank check in some ways, but we were shuttling back and forth between the tradition as it developed at this point, the call of the Vatican to look and go back to the charism of the founder, what were the accretions of the centuries in terms of our life, how might we be more ready and available to serve the modern world.
I never thought of myself as an activist exactly, although I was in processions and things in the 60s. But I think what helped me most to care about racism and about, a variety of people was just friendship.
For instance, the March on Selma was going on. Some of our students went. I didn't quite feel I could hop away and go down to Selma, Alabama, but we had a march here. And Father Krieger, who was then the chaplain, got us all together, and we marched in pairs, in silence, down Division Street. We picked up Concordia on the way, and we walked down Harlem Avenue to Lake Street. And we marched down to the post office, which is the only federal building we could find in the area. I did have an experience. A woman approached me, and I thought she was just coming to ask me a question, and she very quietly gave me a push into the street. But I didn't fall down. See, I think the Lord was with me anyway. And then we went on to the post office. She just walked away.
I hope and I know that students do learn while they're here, but I also hope that we're able to make it enjoyable and meaningful enough so that students will love to learn new things and never to close the door and say, okay, well, we're finished with that. For Dominicans, study is a lifelong process. You don't always study in books, but you study people and places and things.
And I'm constantly trying to be on top of, are we asking the important questions? We might not have the answers, but are we asking the important questions? Staff, faculty, administration, and students. Are we asking the big questions? Who are you? What are you about? What's important? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? Would you be a good parent? What do you think people are going to say about you in 50 years? What are you going to say about yourself in 10?
I hope they discover both a hunger and a passion for truth, which is an unending journey and quest. I hope they discover that warm bonds of affection are possible in the human community, and that in a place like this, through being together and sharing truth and commitment and struggle, that we discover we become something more, and there are bonds that last.
I hope they at least are open to some extent, not closed at least, to God as truth and love.
So I think to live life with every day saying this is a new one and make the most of it, whatever happens, and keep on going and trust in the providence of God, God who is always with us. And we as Dominicans truly do trust in God's providence, and not that others don't, but we do trust in God's providence, and I think that has made the difference.
Something that has guided my whole life, and it is a way of being with people. It's a quality of love that one calls agape love. I teach this too, the whole idea that there's romantic love, we all know about that, but we're talking about the love that gives itself away. And that's what I experienced from the sisters. The love that gives itself away. And what happens is you are gifted all the time by the people you're with. You're right now, even in this engagement, you are gifting me. I hope I'm gifting you.
When people walk across the stage, when they pick up that degree, I'd like to think that they've learned what they need to learn in their discipline, so that they are competent in whatever they're planning to do, so on that sort of intellectual level. But I also hope that their hearts have been expanded as well, and that they're working for the common good, if you will, if you don't want to give it a religious name, the common good. It's not just about me. But it's about me in my community, me in my world, me in my relationship with nature, all of that.
I hope they learn that study is terribly important, and that includes study of their faith and growing in that. I hope they learn that they are their brother's keeper, and that because they are privileged, in a very real sense, they learn to give something back.
The sisters who have gone before us and the sisters who have taught you, whom I know that you might not know, they live on in these students. I'm very clear about that. I'm very sure of that. Again, I have been privileged to witness that.
It's up to you to make yourself and this world a reflection of your idea of Caritas and Veritas.